Hey there everyone, thanks for joining me again. I had promised to do my monthly reviews with you. Whether you liked it or not, I think that was more of a promise for me, so I would actually do my monthly reviews. So I have the first one for you, January. If you'll remember from my planning video where I showed you how I'm using Leonie Dawson's planner with my Franklin Covey planner, I said that at the end of the month I would go through her review. So what I did was I set up my goals for the month of January, and now I'm going through her review sheet. I don't have a spare one to show you. That probably would have been good. But I noticed some very interesting things when I took the time to review my month. So I'll go over those individually. First off, the review as it's written. If you have the Leonie Dawson planner in here, let me show you actually the page I'm using. Hopefully you can see that. It's got just 4 parts to it to review your month. And I'm already finding out that I kind of don't like this system. So I'll tell you later about what I'm going to do to change it up. So, as it's written, it says, what goals did you achieve in January? I achieved almost all of my personal goals and pretty much none of my business goals, which leads me to my second point a little bit later about insights. So, some of those goals included paying off some debts. There was an income goal, but that income goal was pretty lofty, so I didn't actually expect to meet that one. I was just trying to get as close as possible. And what else? Oh, there were 2 events that I told myself I was going to do this month or in January. One was the National Western Stock Show and Parade, which the opening parade is what I wanted to go to. And that is a wonderful thing where Texas Longhorn cattle are paraded through downtown Denver from Union Station down 17th Street, and that is something that I've always wanted to see because I find it so hilarious that we have this lovely little modern town of Denver, very, metropolitan, I think, and we're still parading cattle through once a year. And then the other event related to the stock show was Tea with Steers, which I had heard about when I went and took a tour of the Brown Palace Hotel. The Brown Palace Hotel was one of the first and largest hotels built in Denver in the 1800s, late 1800s. It's a beautiful, beautiful hotel today. It's a luxury hotel. It's got a spa and everything. It's absolutely gorgeous. And at the end of the stock show, the prize-winning steer are put on display in the lobby of the hotel during tea time. So I did go and see the steers, and I did get my picture taken with them. So those were the big events I wanted to do, so I did those. And then there were some smaller things. So as said, most of my personal goals I achieved, business not so much. Any unplanned successes? I don't think so. Not really. I mean, I did add a couple of things to my quote-unquote goals when I decided after the new year I was going to be reading more, writing more, and I have been doing that. It's not as consistent as I would like, but I have been making an effort to do that, so I guess I could say that was an unplanned success. It wasn't one of my original goals, but I did that. What goals will you go for in February? Basically, I'm going to concentrate in February on those business goals that I did not get done. So I'm moving all of those over to February. The other thing I am including is a no-spend month. Now this one is going to be difficult for me. I'm kind of testing it out. I've heard about it. I don't know how much I really like it because I'm going to go off onto a rant now about budgets, but I have reasons for not liking budgets and the latte factor and all of that, which maybe I'll explain at some point later. But that's the only thing really that I've added that I want to do. I don't want to do extra spending because I did notice as I was doing it, I realized in January I was spending too much. And so I did a review of my finances also as part of this. Which, by the way, again, this setup for the monthly review only deals with those goals you wrote down. And if you didn't specifically write down financial goals or specifics about financial goals, then I think this is kind of an incomplete review. So, and then what do you need to do to make your goals happen in February? I need to do, basically. So I need to figure out what my plan is for taking action and how I'm actually going to do that. There are some things I need to learn. I don't really know. It's mainly to do with social media stuff that I really don't know a lot about, that I have to learn in baby steps. So that will be part of my plan that I've been working on for like the last week. But that's essentially it. What do I need to do to make it happen? I need to actually do things. And yeah, that's probably not detailed enough for this review. But as said, I'm finding that this review is not really working for me completely. So that's part 1 of my review. And part 2 is going to be insights from going through this review. What did I realize? First thing I realized was that this review from Leonie Dawson doesn't really address a whole lot. It was very interesting for me actually to realize as I was looking at my goals where my priorities are. I accomplished a lot of personal stuff, but not a whole lot that's going to improve my life as I want to. Basically, get myself to where I can be financially stable, because right now I'm not. So I did not put a whole lot of effort into that. And so I started thinking about it. Why is that? Is it because I don't know enough of what I want to do? Is it scary? Yes, it is. What kind of blocks do I have that are preventing me from putting effort into what's going to be most useful to me? The personal stuff is great, but that's not what's going to be most useful to me right now. So one insight I gained from doing this month is that I need to look at my priorities and rearrange them a little bit. And that does not mean putting myself last. It just means being a better time manager. So I've already started implementing things to help me with that. Things like timing, actually having a timer and giving myself set tasks to do. Unfortunately, I have a very busy schedule with work, school, an internship, and then I have my personal things that I want to do. So it does not give me a lot of wiggle room. But I am making progress with that. So those were some of the insights that I gained from doing this exercise. And lastly, I wanted to share a little bit about my financial review without too much detail, because I'm sure none of you care about my finances. But for a lot of us, budgeting is really difficult. And as said, going through January, I knew as I was doing it that I was spending too much. So I did keep track of everything I spent for the month of January. I do have a budget, but I realized also that not everything that I spend on is necessarily in my budget, so I had to find the leaks. And that was my purpose in doing this for January. Find the leaks and see how I can adjust for them. So a couple of the items that I came up with actually were, I wanted to know, am I overspending on a couple of items that are in my budget that fluctuate? Those items are food, coffee breaks, I love going out to coffee, and I think the other one was laundry. Am I overspending on these things? And 2 out of the 3, food and coffee, yes I did. Food I overspent by a lot. Food made up approximately 11% of my total money spent for the month. And over 50%, by the way, of my total money spent is in budgeted household expenses that remain static. So I'm talking my mortgage, my life insurance, my home insurance, my internet bill, my phone bill, and I work via the internet, so that is a necessary for me. So those things take up 50 to 75% of my budget right there, just what I need to keep the roof over my head. So 11% is a lot, actually, for food. Coffee, not so much. I only overspent by a small amount on my coffee break, so I'm happy about that. I just need to cut out one break along the way and call it good. And laundry I was good on. So those were the 3 items that had a budget that I need to keep track of and make sure I don't go over budget. So what I'm doing for February is I created for my planner in my finance section, in addition to where I'm keeping track of all of my expenses, I've got hole punched cards, index cards, labeled with each of those 3 items, and or not those 3, but labeled with the items I want to keep track of and the amount that I've budgeted. So each time I spend on those things, I'm going to write it in, I'm going to subtract it from the budget. So when I get to 0, that's it. No more spending on that. So hopefully that will help me out in February. I'll let you know if it does. All right, and then I made a list of all of the things I spent money on that were not anywhere in my budget. Things, because I realized I'm probably spending on things fairly regularly that should be budgeted items. One of those, socializing. I have like 1 friend, so I don't socialize that much. But this friend of mine, or a couple of other friends, when we do get together, basically what do you do when you socialize? You go out to coffee, you go out to lunch, you go out to dinner, you spend money. Now that every time I socialize it winds up being food, but I am not including that in my food budget because it's separate. It's something I do specifically to spend time with friends. That's also why I do not include coffee in my food budget. What I mean by coffee is I go to the coffee shop, I sit and I have my coffee, maybe my coffee and a bagel, coffee and a cookie, whatever. But that is my me time that I really enjoy, and that is separate from I need to buy this food to exist. Okay, so that's why I do it that way. So socializing. For the month of February, I did give myself a small budget for socializing, which I did take out of my food budget. So I'm going to see if that equals out. Also, transportation. I do have a small budget for that. I take the bus. Sometimes that fluctuates. I do have a membership with a car share, and on occasion, if I feel I need to rent a car for something, the bus just isn't going to hack it, then I'll do that. So, but in the majority of cases, if I need to get somewhere, I take the bus. So really, it's just the bus fare that I've budgeted in. Another big item that I realized was not in my budget that should be household expenses. So everything other than my mortgage, my insurance, things like that. When I buy toilet paper, paper towels, Drano, those things, I don't have that in my budget. The only market budget that I have is for food. So now I don't spend much on household items. I spend about $25 in January on household items, but that is something that happens that is recurring, so I need to add that in. I actually spent a lot on hobbies and miscellaneous post office stuff. These 2 do not happen often. The office and post office stuff is new because I was selling some books, and also I'm starting to help my sister with some grading, with some of her work that she does for her job, but she's in another state, so we have to mail things back and forth. So at least the one for my sister should probably be budgeted in, at least for the next few months. Hobbies. Hobbies are hit or miss. I dance, I write, I read, and sometimes, most of the time, I spend no money on this. I never go out dancing anymore because it can very easily get very expensive. But in the month of January, I did overspend on hobby stuff. And so it was kind of one of these, I got a bug in my bonnet and I just was buying things left and right. And a lot of these things, by the way, are online purchases. I go out very infrequently and buy things. So I need to create a strategy to avoid that, to curb that habit. Because when I get into a spending frenzy, bad things happen. Okay, so that was kind of my review of my financial portion of this. I spent a little bit more time than I should have on that, but the reason is because finances are very, very important to me because they're unstable for me right now and because budgeting traditionally has not worked. And I get the feeling within my own pagan friend community and friends in general, it's not just me. A lot of people have a lot of trouble with finances, and I do not like this prevailing thought process by the people who have regular steady paychecks that cover everything, who just assume that financial hardship is your fault because you're overspending, you're going out too much, you're doing this, you're doing that. That's not the case. And I am actually working on writing several things related to that. And this was my way of finding the leaks. I wanted to make a point of that because for many people it's very difficult. You think you have everything added into your budget, everything you could possibly think of, but it's very important then to spend, be diligent for at least a few months, mark down everything. And that way you will find the leaks, because there are always leaks. There were, as said, household items that I never thought of to put on my budget, which should be obvious, but it wasn't for me. So, I hope this was entertaining for you. This was my January in review. I am going to be making some changes for February. One of the tools that I found to work with in February is actually another planner similar to the Leonie Dawson planner. It's actually by Lisa Jacobs, and she runs a website called Marketing Your Creativity, and she is much more kind of straightforward. She gives a lot more detail than Leonie Dawson does, which I kind of need. I'm one of those people. And the other thing that I really like about her planner versus Leonie's is Leonie gets you thinking and gets initial ideas on paper. She has you set your goals. She even has you set a date for when are you going to accomplish this, but she completely leaves out action steps. What am I going to do to make it happen? But that's too vague. That's too general. You need to figure out what are your action steps and how long is it going to take and put it into your planner. And that part kind of gets glossed over in the Leonie Dawson planner, but is very detailed in Lisa Jacobs planner, which is, it's not your shining year, it's something like your best year. I'll look it up. I'll put the information in with the video. All right, so that was January. Please do join me again for February. I hope your January went well. I hope that you accomplished a lot of your own goals, and let's compare notes next month. See you then.